Hollywood loved him for 40 years. Now they're running away. Bill Murray threw an ashtray at Richard Dreyfuss's head. He made Lucy Liu cry on set. He trapped a young woman under his body and kissed her without consent. This wasn't just one bad day, it was decades of abuse that nobody dared talk about. Disney shut down a $20 million movie because of him. His best friend didn't speak to him for 20 years. The truth is finally coming out, and it's way worse than anybody imagined. Bill Murray was born on September 21, 1950, in Evanston, Illinois. His mother worked in a mailroom, and his father sold lumber. Bill grew up in Wilmette, a suburb of Chicago, surrounded by 8 siblings. The house was noisy, crowded, and always a bit chaotic. It was the kind of environment where you had to speak up to be heard, and that may be where his sense of humor started to take shape. His family was Irish Catholic, with roots going back to County Cork and County Galway in Ireland. Faith and family were big parts of his life. But tragedy hit hard when Bill was just 17. His father died from complications related to diabetes, leaving the family without a dad and Bill without the man he looked up to most. As a teenager, Bill found comfort in reading books about American heroes like Davy Crockett. He also worked as a golf caddy to help pay for school. It was during those long hours on the golf course that he began observing people in a way that would later show up in his comedy. After finishing high school, he headed to college in Denver to study pre-med. But something didn't feel right. He wasn't passionate about medicine, and pretty soon, he dropped out and went back home. Years later, the same school gave him an honorary degree, more for his impact on culture than academics. Around this time, something happened that could have ruined everything. On his 20th birthday, Bill was arrested at Chicago's O'Hare Airport for trying to smuggle nearly 10 pounds of marijuana. He had joked to a fellow passenger that he had a bomb in his bag, and that led to a search. He got probation instead of jail, but the incident forced him to rethink his life. It was a turning point, and not long after, comedy entered the picture. Bill's older brother, Brian Doyle Murray, was already part of Chicago's comedy scene. He invited Bill to join the Second City, a legendary comedy troupe known for launching major careers. Bill said yes. That decision would change everything. At Second City, Bill trained under Del Close, a mentor known for shaping comedy legends. Close encouraged actors to be honest, weird, and fearless. Under his guidance, Bill developed his signature deadpan style. He learned to make even the quiet moments funny. That style would become the core of his future work. During one performance, a heckler pushed him too far. The story goes that Bill broke the guy's arm, then bought him a beer and drove him to the hospital. That's the kind of wild energy he brought to the stage. In 1974, Bill moved to New York City. He joined a radio comedy show called the National Lampoon Radio Hour, thanks to John Belushi. The cast was packed with future stars: Dan Aykroyd, Gilda Radner, Chevy Chase, Harold Ramis. They were all unknowns back then, just trying to make each other laugh. It was a tight-knit group, and it became the launchpad for something much bigger. But before Bill made it to NBC's Saturday Night Live, he took a strange detour. In 1975, he was cast on a different show, ABC's Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. It was a primetime variety show hosted by a sports broadcaster who had no background in comedy. The show flopped quickly, but Bill, along with his brother Brian and Christopher Guest, gained TV experience. When NBC launched their version of Saturday Night Live, they took a jab at the ABC show by calling their cast the not ready for primetime players. The joke stuck. In 1977, Bill joined NBC's SNL, stepping into the role left by Chevy Chase. It was a tough act to follow. audiences were skeptical. His early sketches didn't land, and behind the scenes, things were tense. When Chevy returned to host in 1978, he and Bill got into a physical fight backstage just before the show started. Bill reportedly called him a medium talent. They had to perform together right after that. The tension between them would simmer for years. Still, Bill pushed through and created some of the show's most memorable characters. One of his biggest hits was Nick the Lounge Singer, a cheesy nightclub act who sang popular songs with ridiculous confidence. His version of the Star Wars theme, complete with made-up lyrics, became iconic. That character captured everything that made Bill different: dry, absurd, and oddly sincere. His time on SNL also brought him close to Gilda Radner, both on and off screen. They played nerdy teenagers in a recurring sketch, and their real-life relationship mirrored the ups and downs of those characters. They fought often, sometimes right in front of the cast, but there was real affection underneath it all. Bill once said no one made him laugh the way Gilda did. She could laugh so hard she'd run out of the room, and sometimes she'd literally pee herself. Their relationship didn't last, but her death years later hit Bill hard. He never forgot her. During his time on the show, Bill won an Emmy for writing. It gave him the credibility he needed to break into Hollywood. Soon, he was starring in movies like Meatballs, Caddyshack, Stripes, and Ghostbusters. His dry, offbeat humor stood out in a world of bigger, louder comedy. His time on SNL had taught him timing, character work, and how to make people laugh without trying too hard. Years later, he'd win another Emmy, this time for drama, and return to SNL for its 50th anniversary. He sang as Nick the Lounge Singer again, backed by a group of cast members from different generations. Afterward, he admitted he'd cried 3 times watching the tribute videos. That night reminded him where it all started. Bill Murray's rise in the movies started with a small film called Meatballs in 1979. It was a cheap comedy shot in Canada, and no one expected it to do much. But when it hit theaters, something strange happened. It became a huge hit. It started in just a few theaters in Toronto but made a lot of money right away. Soon it spread across North America, bringing in millions. It became the most successful Canadian movie at the time and gave Murray his first big movie role. People loved his laid-back, sarcastic style, and that charm quickly became his trademark. The man behind Meatballs was director Ivan Reitman, and this film also gave him a boost. It wouldn't be the last time Reitman and Murray worked together. Around this time, Murray also teamed up with writer and actor Harold Ramis. Together, they made some of the biggest comedies of the early 80s: Caddyshack, Stripes, and later, Ghostbusters. They were a dream team. Ramis had a sharp mind for comedy, and Murray had a natural way of delivering it. Their biggest hit came in 1984 with Ghostbusters, a wild comedy about ghost-hunting scientists that took the world by storm. But success wasn't always easy for Murray. That same year, he wanted to do something different. He had read a serious novel called The Razor's Edge and felt strongly about turning it into a movie. The studio wasn't sure, but Murray made a deal. He would star in Ghostbusters only if they funded The Razor's Edge. So they did. But when it came out, the audience didn't connect with it. The movie didn't make money, and critics were divided. Some said he was out of his depth in a dramatic role. Others saw something deeper in his performance. Still, the failure hit him hard. After that, Murray disappeared from the spotlight. He traveled through Europe, studied history and philosophy, and spent time with his family. It was a strange move for someone who had just become a massive star, but Murray needed a break. He stayed away from major films for years. When he finally came back with Scrooged and Ghostbusters 2, the response wasn't what he hoped for. People liked the movies, but they didn't make as much money as expected. As the 1990s began, he found himself starring in movies that didn't land well, comedies like Larger Than Life and The Man Who Knew Too Little. Studios began to doubt whether he could still carry a film. Through it all, Murray grew more distant from Hollywood. He didn't like how things worked behind the scenes. Scripts didn't interest him, and he didn't want to play the same kind of roles over and over. In time, he took an unusual step. He stopped using agents or managers altogether. That meant he became hard to reach, even for big studios. He admitted that he had become selective, almost lazy, waiting for the right roles to find him. In 1990, he tried something new. He co-directed a film called Quick Change, a clever heist comedy where he also played the lead. Critics liked it, saying it was one of his smartest performances. But again, the box office wasn't kind. The film didn't make enough money, and that only deepened Murray's feeling that maybe Hollywood wasn't the place for him anymore. But then came Groundhog Day in 1993. It was the right movie at the right time. The story was funny and strange, a man stuck reliving the same day over and over, and it gave Murray a chance to show a deeper side. He argued a lot with director Harold Ramis during filming. They couldn't agree on the tone. Murray wanted it to be more thoughtful, while Ramis wanted it light. The tension got so bad that they stopped speaking altogether and wouldn't talk again for over 20 years. But all that friction may have helped. Murray gave a layered performance that critics loved. The movie was a hit, and it reminded the world why he was such a unique talent. Groundhog Day changed everything for him. It proved that he could go beyond just being funny. It opened the door to deeper roles later on, like in Lost in Translation, where he showed even more emotional depth. That film would earn him an Oscar nomination. Looking back, Bill Murray's path through the 1980s and beyond wasn't simple. He had huge success, but also tough failures. He turned down the usual road to stardom and carved out his own way, taking big risks and stepping back when things didn't feel right. Bill Murray wasn't looking for a comeback. He wasn't chasing awards or trying to prove anything. But in 1998, something unexpected happened that would change the direction of his career. He crossed paths with a young filmmaker named Wes Anderson. A couple of years earlier, Anderson had tried to get Murray for his first movie, Bottle Rocket, but it didn't work out. Then came Rushmore. Anderson sent the script out, and somehow, within a week, Murray ended up calling the office of a Disney executive. The same office where Anderson happened to be at that exact moment. That phone call kicked off a meeting, and soon after, they were face-to-face in Los Angeles. Murray took over the bar downstairs, danced around, and treated the whole team to steak. He wasn't just on board, he was in. And he didn't ask for a big paycheck either. Instead, Murray took the smallest possible salary, just $9,000, because he believed in the script. He said it was about holding on to kindness even when life is painful. That stuck with him, and it showed. His performance in Rushmore revealed a side of him that audiences hadn't seen before. Thoughtful, quiet, emotionally raw. Anderson would later call him the godfather of that film. For Murray, Rushmore was a turning point. Until then, he was mostly known for being funny, the guy from Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day. But he wanted more. He wanted roles that were deeper. With Anderson's help, he found them. In The Royal Tenenbaums, Murray played a man so emotionally shut down, he barely seemed alive. In The Life Aquatic, with Steve Zissou, he was an ocean explorer on a strange mission to hunt a shark that had killed his friend. Somehow, he made the character feel both tough and totally vulnerable. That balance between humor and heartbreak became Murray's new strength. By 2004, Murray was one of Anderson's most trusted actors, right alongside Owen Wilson and Angelica Houston. And their partnership kept growing. Murray went on to appear in 10 of Anderson's films over more than 20 years. Each time, he brought something new. Sometimes broken, sometimes sweet. Always unexpected. Behind the scenes, the connection between them kept evolving. At a film premiere in Berlin years later, Murray talked about how far Anderson had come since Rushmore. He credited Anderson's partnership with producer Steve Rails, which began in 2007, for helping Anderson push his creative limits. Over time, Murray didn't need much direction. If something wasn't clear, he'd just ask. But most of the time, he trusted Anderson completely. That trust ran deep. When Anderson moved into animation with Isle of Dogs, Murray didn't hesitate. He joined in. Even in a voice role, he kept that same energy, that same tone that made their live-action films so unique. And when Anderson began work on a new project in 2024, Murray signed on immediately. No plot details needed. Their creative partnership turned heads from the start. After Rushmore, Murray won Best Supporting Actor at the Independent Spirit Awards, and critics across the country followed suit. He even landed a Golden Globe nomination. And years later, the film was chosen by the Library of Congress for preservation, a sign of just how much impact it had. Critics saw something special in that performance, something new. One said Anderson had been wise not to make it too sentimental. Another praised how much heart Murray gave the story, even as he kept it quirky and sharp. Together, Murray and Anderson reshaped each other's careers. Anderson earned his place as a one-of-a-kind filmmaker, and Murray, once just the funny guy, became something more. A deeply respected actor who could break your heart while making you laugh. Bill Murray was once best known as the wisecracking goofball from movies like Ghostbusters and Groundhog Day. But everything changed in 2003 when he took on a quiet, thoughtful role in Lost in Translation. He played Bob Harris, an aging actor stuck in Tokyo, doing whiskey commercials and wondering what went wrong with his life. It was a strange and lonely place, but in that unfamiliar setting, he met someone who understood him. The film didn't have flashy action or loud jokes. It was all about quiet moments, little looks, and the feeling of being lost, not just in a city, but in your own life. The movie was made on a shoestring budget, but turned into a huge hit. Critics couldn't stop praising Murray. They said he showed so much emotion without saying much at all. Just a glance or a pause said everything. It wasn't the kind of performance people expected from him, and that's what made it so powerful. It earned him his first and only Oscar nomination for Best Actor. For Murray, this wasn't just a good role, it was a turning point. As awards season rolled in, Murray became the favorite. He won the Golden Globe. He won the BAFTA. He won over most of the critics. It seemed like the Oscar would be his, too. But on the big night, something unexpected happened. The award went to Sean Penn for Mystic River. Murray later admitted he was surprised. He had won every other award, so he thought the Oscar was a sure thing. But in hindsight, he saw the loss differently. He said it taught him something. How easy it is to get caught up in wanting more, even when you think you don't care. That night reminded him not to chase trophies. Even without the Oscar, Murray didn't slow down. He kept choosing roles that mattered to him, not just ones that paid well or promised fame. In Broken Flowers, he played a man who gets a letter saying he might have a son. That sets him off on a journey to find out the truth. It was a quiet film filled with sadness and humor. Then, in St. Vincent, he played a grumpy old man who ends up becoming a hero in a young boy's life. These roles were different, but they shared one thing. They showed how deep and human Murray could be, even when he was playing someone rough around the edges. He started working mostly with directors who knew how to use his style, people like Wes Anderson and Jim Jarmusch. They saw what others had missed for years, that Murray could be more than funny. He could be real. In 2014, Murray made a surprising return to television. He appeared in Olive Kitteridge, a quiet miniseries on HBO. He wasn't in it for long, but his role as a widower trying to connect with someone new left a big impression. It was so good that he won an Emmy. For someone who started on Saturday Night Live, then moved away from TV, it felt like coming full circle. But this time, he returned as someone the audience saw differently. Someone deeper, more seasoned, more respected. Part of what makes Murray so interesting now isn't just the roles he picks, it's how he picks them. He doesn't have an agent or a manager. He doesn't do business the Hollywood way. If a director wants to work with him, they have to find a special phone number, leave a message, and hope he checks it. He might call back in a week. He might not. Some have said they've lost out on casting him because they couldn't reach him in time. But to Murray, that's the point. He doesn't want to be chased. He wants to be intrigued. He once joked that if your script is good enough, you'll find a way to reach him. That's how he stays in control, by keeping the world at arm's length and only stepping forward when something truly moves him. It's not about being difficult, it's about protecting what matters. The work, the meaning behind it, and the freedom to say no. Bill Murray may have started as the funny guy who always had a punchline. But now, he's something more. He's become a symbol of what it looks like to grow, to take chances, and to care deeply about the stories you tell. Bill Murray isn't just a famous actor, he's something closer to a walking myth. Over the years, he's turned himself into a kind of legend, not just for his movies, but for the way he slips into people's lives, does something strange or hilarious, and then disappears like nothing happened. One of the most talked about stories goes back to around 2010 in Times Square. A man was eating McDonald's fries when Murray suddenly appeared, took 2 fries without asking, and calmly told him, "No one will ever believe you." Then he vanished into the crowd. That one sentence became his signature for these moments. He said it before, after covering a stranger's eyes from behind, after showing up out of nowhere. Then just gone. It's like he's in on a joke the rest of the world only hears secondhand. Bill Murray has long been one of Hollywood's most iconic actors. But behind the scenes, many people tell a different story. Some say he was funny and brilliant. Others say he was impossible to work with. One of the most shocking stories came from Richard Dreyfuss. They were filming What About Bob in 1991. One night, Dreyfuss handed Murray a script revision. He said Murray had been drinking. Instead of reading it, Murray got right in Dreyfuss's face and yelled, "Everyone hates you! You are tolerated!" Dreyfuss said it got worse. Murray picked up a heavy glass ashtray and threw it at him. Luckily, it missed. Years later, Murray denied throwing it at Dreyfuss. He said he threw it at the ceiling. But the film's producer, Laura Ziskin, backed up Dreyfuss's story. She said Murray once broke her sunglasses, threatened to throw her across a parking lot, and even tossed her into a lake. Lucy Liu had her own story from the Charlie's Angels set in 2000. She said Murray used language that was inexcusable and unacceptable. It happened after Murray wrote new lines and handed them out to the crew without telling anyone. Liu told him it wasn't his job. That's when, according to people on set, Murray said something belittling like, "I gave you more lines. Look who you're in with. You're TV. This is the big league." Liu didn't stay quiet. She swore at him and stood her ground. After that, Murray didn't come back for the sequel. Years later, Drew Barrymore praised Liu for not letting herself be disrespected. Geena Davis also had a disturbing experience while filming Quick Change in 1990. She said Murray screamed at her in front of a crowd because she was late. She also described a moment during her audition that still haunts her. Murray brought out a massage tool he called the thumper and insisted on using it on her. She said no again and again, but he kept pushing. No one else in the room stopped him. Later, on the Arsenio Hall show, Davis said Murray touched her arm on air and even tried to pull down her dress strap. At the time, she tried to laugh it off. But looking back, she called it awful. In 2025, when asked about her stories, Murray called them outrageous and said people were trying to make him look like a monster. But one of the longest and saddest conflicts was between Murray and Harold Ramis, his longtime friend and collaborator. They had made hits like Ghostbusters and Stripes, but everything changed during Groundhog Day. They clashed over the tone of the film. Murray wanted it deep and thoughtful. Ramis wanted it funny. The fighting got intense. At one point, Ramis even grabbed Murray by the collar and pushed him against a wall, something totally out of character for him. They stopped speaking after that. Murray would call him late at night to argue about the script, then vanish when Ramis tried to respond. They didn't talk for 20 years. Ramis was heartbroken. They only spoke again just before Ramis died in 2014. Then, in 2022, another serious incident happened. Murray was filming Being Mortal, a movie directed by Aziz Ansari. According to reports, Murray got too close to a much younger crew member on set. They were near a prop bed when Murray allegedly climbed on top of her and kissed her through their COVID masks. She said she was terrified. She couldn't move because of his weight. Another person saw it happen and also filed a complaint. The studio shut everything down right away. Production stopped. The film never recovered. Murray later gave his side of the story. In a 2025 interview, he said he thought it was funny. He said he'd done the mask-kissing thing before and people laughed. He said the woman wasn't a stranger. They'd had lunch a few times. He didn't think it was serious. Even now, he says it still seems silly to him. But he also admits he thinks about it often. At the same time, he claims he was treated unfairly. He said he got barbecued by the press. Murray ended up settling with the woman later that year. Reports say it was over $100,000. Still, the damage was done. The film was canceled. The whole cast and crew lost their chance to finish it. Years of planning and millions of dollars were gone. Even now, Murray says the whole thing was misunderstood. He blamed what he called pre-existing conditions, though he didn't explain what that meant. He also criticized Disney's strict rules, saying they were tougher than most countries. Some saw that as an attempt to shift the blame. Others felt it showed he still didn't understand why his actions caused so much harm.